Alright, what is going on everyone? So welcome to the end of patch 5.9, and that means we're going to have another tier list video where I talk about all the adjustments and considerations made to the game's meta this patch, where I think certain characters are headed, and of course, what I think about the latest new characters of this patch, and whether or not they made the list for must build as we move forward. And as a reminder, this tier list does not contain every single character, but the most powerful ones that I believe need to be considered for the wider game, and those who fulfill more of these criteria tend to feature a lot more strongly. And while this list does speak to a largely more middle to end game audience, if any newer players out there are able to obtain and upgrade any of these characters on this list, they will be valid for you for some time. Otherwise, I would direct you to my many beginner guide videos on my channel front if you're looking for more relevant content for the early game. With that all out of the way, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Okay, so before we get started here with the new characters from patch 5.9 and what I think about them and why they replaced where they were, I want to let you all know about who was moved on this list, since these adjustments are important to talk about. And in case you guys want to see the list from last patch, I'll put it on the screen for a few seconds so you can pause it there if you like, but otherwise we're mainly here for the new version. So back to patch 5.9, you might notice not a lot was changed, but we'll be talking about this. So starting off with promotions on the list, actually with Shang-Chi. Now that he is farmable via the Blitz Orb, I think that makes him quite easy to get shards for, and he was always a solid character standing out from the rest of the Heroes for Hire team, but he is a strong additional member in Doomraid's skill alongside the Secret Avengers, but also a solid choice for Dark Dimension City, given that he uses skill in the event that you're a bit short on Bio or Mystic for other solid city choices. He is a very strong standalone character in his own right. You may also notice that I have decided to keep a handful of characters on the Proceed with Caution list, now that this is normally the beginning of the end when characters reach this list, or in some cases I'm just not confident enough to have them in this left-hand category here. And, I think I probably should have started that anyone in the solid investments are definitely characters that without a doubt you should be raising. Characters in the Proceed with Caution are exactly that, like they're characters that may be dropping off, characters that just aren't good enough to be on this left-hand column, but they are still really strong and probably a top 30 choice here. And for anyone who is wondering what's going on here on this category, this is basically what I call the dollar sign. So for newer players especially, actually, the best investments that you could possibly make would be in Icarus and Cersei at this time in the game. They are the two best characters, in my opinion, in the game right now that are accessible, because they're so strong everywhere that you can use them. I don't really need to go on about their kits because they're just nuts. Do look it up if you don't know what they do. And Dormammu is just here as a funny nod because, well, you do need to spend a lot of money if you want to complete Dark Dimension 5. So that's where we're at right now. Let's continue on with some of the adjustments. So you may notice that some other characters are still here. So Adam Warlock has been really moved aside in a lot of ways since the Eternal showed up, kicking him out of Doomraid Mystic for the most part. He stays on the list for just now, as a bit of a nod to Dark Dimension Legendary lanes for the most part, but honestly, I don't think it's a huge imperative for newer and mid-game players to go out of their way to push themselves to get him now, especially if you're not anywhere in sight to this kind of content. Doc Ock also in a lot of ways is very similar, although he's easier to unlock overall as a legendary character than Adam Warlock. He also may be part of the upcoming Nowhere Heist Flash event tag, which we did have at the start of the patch before the tag was removed from the game. For Doomraid Tech, I still use him, but it's really just a matter of time until he's replaced overall. His use is kind of fading despite how much I love the character, and I think I may take him to Dark Dimension Legendary still because of his tech origin and not having a lot of good tech viable Dark Dimension characters. Symbiote Spider-Man also still maintains the list, but just barely, and I think by next patch I suspect that he may be removed altogether. But I want to give him the slight nod in the way that Ghost stayed on for a little while. He's actually overall better than Ghost in my opinion, and I think that some people, including myself, may decide to actually take him into Dark Dimension 5 City. Now, will he make Dark Dimension 6? Very unlikely, not unless symbiotes get a resurgence, but he is the only symbiote at this point that is worth any level of investment. Don't bother with any of the others. And so that leaves us with one major team here. And I'm sure a lot of you are wondering why they're here on the right, here at the bottom. That's Astonishing X-Men. And you're probably all like, man, Boilon, you're crazy, because they are the only mutant raid team realistically. And that's not wrong. But as far as time goes, they're about a year old at this point. Beast is actually a year and a half old. When Anti-Venom and Scream were replaced within Web Warriors, they lasted about a total of 14 months in the lifespan of Anti-Venom and Scream. With that, what this says to me is that a mutant raid team is very likely on the way within the next 4 to 6 months, or they will open up the lane to more hybridization like that is currently possible with Doom Raid Bio. Perhaps characters like Jubilee, Beast, and Bishop will maintain their spots, but open to other mutants being really strong and viable here in the future. But given how old they are, I think caution really needs to be taken when building these guys. If you're not even close to entering any form of Doom Raid, or are in Doom Raid but don't have to do the mutant lanes yourself, I would actually advise against building these guys for that reason alone. They are probably the set of characters the most on this list that are in danger of dropping off completely. My suggestions for people in Doom Raid alliances would be to request that you not be in a lane where mutant comes from the start, to avoid having to work on these characters. If you are in a hardcore alliance, well, I guess you're screwed and you'll have to build them up, but otherwise I feel at this juncture it's not worth the resources outside of maybe Jubilee for some Dark Dimension legendary purpose, but I know not everyone is going to feel this way, so feel free to disagree with me, but that's just my controversial thoughts of the day. So basically everyone else who I didn't mention are great. I don't have a lot to say other than maybe Kestrel might be a little bit iffy in the near future, but also given the age. We saw a 50 shard $5 offer recently, and that kind of makes me wonder if they're going to make her more farmable, or even in the near future have her replaced. But she is a dual trade character, so I think she'll still have her uses. So that's basically it. I'm not going to go over every single character. They're all really strong in their own right. For the most part, though, anyone who I didn't mention, and frankly, a lot of the characters on this list are here because they're very good in daily content, or they're good in Dark Dimension. So these are the kind of the end game, more end game content, especially towards Doom Raid. You'll notice that a lot of these characters are viable in Doom Raid, and then subsequently a lot of them are also viable in Dark Dimension as a result of that, because of how good they are as a standalone character. So that's the primary focus of this list, because it focuses on that end game. It's not largely here for game modes like Alliance War, so just a heads up about that. Now, starting off with some of the new characters for patch 5.9, we're going to start off by talking about Magic. Now, I'll make this short and sweet, but Magic is not making the tier list, and you're probably wondering, where is she? Well, she's not there. So she didn't make the list for this patch cycle because, frankly, she doesn't do anything stellar that is of a really major note to justify building her to any high extent. Now, this is a little bit disappointing because, as far as characters go, I actually really like her and kind of wish she wasn't relegated to the Uncanny X-Men, and essentially she's kind of like a bit of a generalist war team at this point. Now, in the future, her value may go up because of Grand Tournament, which, as far as I'm aware, won't include war buffs, and who knows, maybe we will see a new Mutants team in the future, but as of right now, she just doesn't justify high levels of investment for broader game use, so she didn't make the cut for me personally. Now, the next three I am going to speak about all together because they're on the same team, and that's the Web Warriors. So you can see that I have a full row here of Web Warriors all together. First off, let's talk about Ghost Spider here. She's really great, probably the best of the Web Warriors, and my personal favorite for a few reasons. Now, her damage stat is very, very high because she's the one who has the passive, and she maintains this even outside of raids, whereas the rest of the team only gets the damage stat in raids. So this makes her stronger across the board in other game modes, which is awesome. She has ability block, but more importantly, she is able to spread negative status effects around in like a Hela-esque sort of style, but it's even stronger because of how her damage stat is comparably, which is a top 5 in the game. So she does hit very, very hard. She has an amazing passive, which retaliates, but largely this works with her own team members, but I think that this does also work when they hit her. She will also likely be a strong consideration for Bio and City choices for Dark Dimension 5, or for that matter, you know, anyone working on Dark Dimension 4 and previously as a Bio and City choice, so this definitely elevates her potential. Now, thirdly from this patch, we have Scarlet Spider here. I was really disappointed with the way that he was released to us free to play, only because most of us were able to get about a 3-star maximum at, I believe, 126 shards. weird number. But without taking all of this into account, I think he just doesn't have the wider use that Ghost Spider does, because a lot of his kit is maintained in raids only. His basic, the extra debuffs that he applies, that's only viable in raids, and a lot of what's in his passive is also raids only. That being said, he isn't bad, but he is second after Ghost Spider in my opinion, and he is quite cheap to gear. So some people are considering him as an option for Dark Dimension 5 alongside Ghost Spider, but all things being equal, I would rather have Gwen. Now, finally, the last member of the Web Warriors from this patch, at least the new characters, is SpiderPunk. And I've talked a fair length about him in various previous videos in the recent past. I think he's actually the least important member of the team right now. But he was a generous release method via the campaign events that just ended, so most people will likely have him at 4-star. That being said, if you are a bit short on Oz formula, I would leave him for last personally. At least the others I believe are a little bit more important, but if you are going for the full team, obviously you will be getting to him at some point. He does do trauma, but it's limited to raids only, unfortunately, and his kit is largely damage and not really wide-ranging enough compared to, say, Scarlet Spider even, or Ghost Spider, to really make him a valid choice for something like Dark Dimension. So I would personally leave him out of that. Don't really take him into Dark Dimension for that, in my opinion. And this kind of extends to OG Spider-Man and Miles as well. As far as the rest of the Web Warriors, these two here, of course, I mean, they're all on here, so this team is really good because they're going to last for a very long time in Doom Raid Bio. Miles and OG had some really great base stat reworks and makes them really, really strong. I'm not going to bother going over the kit at this time, but definitely put some gear and levels into them as well. But your main focus, I think, should be on Ghost Spider and Scarlet Spider, since they're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the team in a raid capacity. Now, finally, ending off patch 5.9 is going to be T'Challa. So he is the final member of patch 5.9, someone who we are still just getting to unlock free to play, but some may already have him who either bought him or purchased through his core orb. He is ongoing right now in Blitz, and he's going to have another one next Thursday. He is a very strong character. He is also a top 5 damage character, just stronger than Ghost Spider actually, because of his damage passive, which is given to himself and his Ravager team. Now, he was designed to be a war offense team with his Ravager allies, but as a standalone character, I think he is quite formidable and can allow you to one-shot Doom Raid 2 tech nodes with his ability to steal energy from Dr. Doom and other enemies. That being said, he really relies on having the right team members, so he isn't someone you're just gonna plop in there and, you know, be amazing. That's why he's on the right-hand column here alongside the likes of Lady Deathstrike, who is also usable in the tech lane, but I think your overall composition for Doom Raid tech is going to be important. And we also have, you know, another potential next patch in the way of Kate Bishop. So I kind of feel like, you know, it's going to be your choice of which new tech characters you want to level until we get the long-awaited actual raid team, assuming we get one for tech. So really at this point, you know, in terms of the tech raid options, you're looking at Kestrel and Doom. These are kind of like pretty solid shoo-ins at this point, and then it's kind of like up in the air kind of who you want to do after that. You know, there's T'Challa, there's Doc Ock, there's Lady Deathstrike, Kate Bishop's coming up. Some people are even using Ravager Stitcher, who, you know, despite how much I like Ravager Stitcher, did not actually make the list here in this tier list. But yes, so that's how things are. Now, I don't normally talk about, you know, every single character on this list, but since we have a little bit of time, you guys might notice that Omega Red is kind of standing alone here by his lonesome self next to the new Warriors on the bottom left. And the reason why only him, as far as the Weapon X team goes, is on this side of the list is because he is an extremely strong standalone character. You know, even if you're not even using the full Weapon X team, I think that you can use him in a standalone capacity because he does apply trauma. He has a lot of great debuffs. As far as war offense goes, you know, I know this is not a war list. You know, he is really good there, and he is viable even by himself. In Dark Dimension, he is really strong there as well. And actually in Doom Raid Mutant, he actually is viable to replace Kitty Pryde. At least in Doom Raid 2 anyways, that you can use Omega Red here instead of her on both the second node. Actually, I've used him there before. doesn't matter too much, but particularly the boss node, which really helps take that down a little bit quicker. So he does have his uses there. Obviously, we have the new warriors, really strong, team to go alongside the Eternals up here for Doomraid Mystic. Quite a bit of a shoe-in there, and Secret Avengers still very much a shoe-in in the skill lane, but there is a little bit of flexibility, I guess, in that 5th slot. Presumably, you're still using Kestrel there for your 4th, and then after that, there's a little bit of wiggle room. Like I said, that's why Shang-Chi is here. I dropped off Moondragon a while ago because I think the Shang-Chi is probably your best option for your 5th character, but, there is a little bit of flexibility. Sometimes Baron Zemo is added in for the 2nd node, things like that, but otherwise, this is it. This represents basically the top almost 30, not quite. I think there's 28 on this list, 27 if you disinclude. Is that a word, disinclude? Dormammu. But otherwise, it's because some of them are on 2 lanes. Kestrel is on both skill and tech. And, Doom is actually primarily on tech now, but he's also usable in Mystic if you need to. So, yes, they do represent largely a Doomraid list, but a lot of these characters are viable in Dark Dimension, like I mentioned in the start. This is not the entire list that you would probably be running in Dark Dimension, but this is a very solid start. And if you are a new player watching this, then any of these characters are going to be really great for your roster that I recommend building, and these are probably the top characters in the game that I would consider at this point in time. Unfortunately, it just isn't worth going back and talking about every single character in the game, because realistically, as we go from patch to patch, with the exception of Alliance War and possibly a future Grand Tournament, these are the characters that you're going to be wanting to use daily. And so that's why that they're going to be brought up the most, because you're going to be using them all the time. And so let me know what you think in the comments down below. I feel like I'm probably going to get the most flack for my positioning on Astonishing X-Men, but realistically, this game is all about resource management, and I think at the end of the day, you really need to think about how long-term that your roster is going to last. And Astonishing X-Men, for me personally, I think that they're going to be the next full team to be dropping off of this. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts, positive or negative. I'm willing to hear it all. I also like critiques, so if you think that this is bad in any way, then you don't need to follow it, but this is just my opinions, of course. So until next time, all stay safe and healthy, and I will see you all later. Boilon signing out.